So, today's video is about a space ARG that I found. I'm not going to drag the intro out. Thank you for clicking on this. Thank you for staying this far. Just thank you for clicking on this. Let's get into it.
Unknown Transmissions catalog, despite being clear on reality in its current day iteration, starts off on August 15th of 2022, the way my romantic situation is right now. Murky and unclear. Catalog, as we will call the owner of this account, starts her off with a pretty realistic premise. They're just a person scanning radio waves and occasionally catching glimpses of weird transmission. They're trying to nail down the exact channel this is on because it seems to change. Overall, pretty grounded premise, destined to fall apart like half of American marriages. The first post reveals to us a few things. The audio is too garbled to get anything from, but we know that Catalog lives in the eastern part of the United States and they're accepting help from commenters on, quote, figuring this out, unquote. On August 16th, we get another post that is very similar in composition. The audio is still too garbled to catch, the channel still isn't quite correct. On the 17th, we get a breakthrough though. Catalog manages to isolate the object generating the signal, which is most definitely a satellite. The signal, however, is completely incomprehensible. The 18th is the same as the 17th audio-wise, but the text on screen provides us with info. Catalog believes that the thing generating this signal is a sophisticated satellite. The account goes silent until the 26th, where Catalog informs us they now believe the satellite to be a very complex and now abandoned piece of Soviet machinery. The entire time, the audio stays garbled and incomprehensible. This last post concludes the August posting. On September 8th, the account returns unlike roughly 10% of missing people. This post still has incomprehensible audio, but for whatever reason, Catalog now believes the satellite to be used by the Soviets in the 70s, now abandoned. They can't find any satellite that fits these requirements in any directories or records, though, leading them to conclude that this thing was top secret. On the 9th, the post is just of an SOS message captured from the satellite. This is important because, for the last month, the satellite has been transmitting gibberish, which means someone or something changed it over. The account returns on the 11th to tell us that they believe this signal to be a delayed SOS, noting the common conspiracy that the Soviets covered up their failed space missions. Perhaps this is one of them. Luckily for us, a 9/11 of this account isn't happening just yet though, so let's carry on. On the 18th of September, the account comes back once more with another post, still about the SOS signal. Catalog, knowing the signal has only been playing for a week or so, decides to go to the authorities with their findings. The authorities are not pleased to find that Catalog has made the discoveries public on Instagram. The government organization Catalog believes is investigating this now remains unnamed, but seeing as how Catalog didn't get their dog shot, it isn't the ATF, so probably the CIA. Or maybe NASA, I don't know. Never really specified. Obviously, with the stakes of the ARG raising and the story progressing with Catalog down here on Earth, people are starting to call bullshit. The start was grounded enough to bring people in, so time has come to drop the mask. What I find really impressive about this, though, is that the creator here makes this, quote, reveal, unquote, a part of this story. On September 29th, or as I should call it, this account's 9/11, Catalog makes another post congratulating everyone for being this interested, but admits this was all a hoax, saying the game is over, it's all just sound design, no one was contacted. But is this really what's happening in the narrative? No. October sees the narrative move completely away from Catalog down on Earth. When the account returns almost a month after the last post, it is from the perspective of the satellite itself, or rather, the lone crew member aboard the ship. The man speaking notes how he is alone in the void of space. He does have a radio, though, which is picking up a community college's radio station. The man seems unfamiliar with what a community college is, and has no idea what the FCC is. He notes that the music he can hear is foreign to him and asks if someone hears him. And asks that if someone hears him, they try to save him. Luckily, from here the posts are labeled so I can stop naming them by date. Transmission 10, the second one we hear from our spaceman, starts with a Superman reference. Once more he pleads with an absent audience to look up. He does observe how he's kind of scared shitless because, hey, he's in the empty void and probable tomb of space, and he also notes that he not only doesn't know how to operate the ship, but the ship is pretty damaged. There is, however, according to him, a comfort of looking out in the windows into space. Transmission 11 is an update on the ship, where the lone man notes that he is sealed in the control room. He has rations and oxygen, but the control panel is damaged beyond use, spare comms equipment. Both doors are sealed, and worse, one of the cabins on the other side of a door has the airlock to space wide open. This isn't an issue while the door that our guy is in is closed and while the ship is in space, but consider any other possibility, and our guy's two options are accidental death via depressurization, or the ship fucking rent to shreds like me every time I have romantic feelings for someone so far on the re-entry on the extremely slim odds that bro makes it back to Earth. Transmission 12 reveals to us that our lone crew member has no memory. He is trying to repair the ship and notes some of it he can do with muscle memory, but he didn't start this mission alone. He's found 4 bags, and these bags are, in my opinion, a little important. The creator isn't slick in hiding their clues, but these 4 bags reveal the identities of who was on board. Bag 1 belongs to Jason. Jason's bag has a book called Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, a diamond ring, a locket with a picture of a couple. Bag 2 belongs to a Heracles. It contains 2 pictures of one guy with 2 different women. Certified scumbag plays on this guy's behalf. Bag 3 belongs to a Theseus. It contains reading glasses and a copy of the King James Bible. The 4th bag belongs to an Icarus. It contains a copy of A Stranger in a Strange Land, and a small handmade device that can loop and reverse audio. Also, every bag has toothpaste, which is really important because the brand of toothpaste that they use tells us what kind of fetishes they had. By looking at his own reflection, the lone crew member knows he isn't Heracles or Jason, and because he doesn't need reading glasses, he isn't Theseus. There's, of course, the possibility that our guy might be Theseus's ship, unless he isn't, even if he is, but we can logically assume that our crew member here is Icarus. The fate of the other 3 crew members...
Yeah, it's not looking good, Bev. It's not looking good.
Transmission 13 sees Icarus having some fun with his little music production device to distract himself from the imminent doom and horror of the eldritch emptiness, the most fearful thing, nothing itself, and the fact that, all of his crew is gone. Icarus is having fun, though, using the device to make music and show off his creations. Thank you, Icarus. Very cool. He also references Cowboy Bebop with the outro, "See you later, Spacefarers." Bro thinks he's him. Transmission 14 is back to the mystery of the missing crew. Icarus still has no memory, but he notices that Heracles is wearing a different spacesuit than what he has on. Heracles' suit is orange, whereas Icarus' suit is red. The flag patch is different as well. Heracles has an American flag, Icarus has a Russian flag, as well as CCCP insignia, which is an abbreviation the USSR went by. Transmission 15 is a more contemplative one, with Icarus reflecting on identity. He notes that he hasn't ever seen a real reflection of himself, just enough to know who he isn't, and he thinks that identity is a collection of influences, even if he doesn't remember them. He states how he believes that if he doesn't remember who he was, he can just become a new someone because he still has an identity right now. And he connects all of this to All Apologies by Nirvana, which is pretty creative and a little profound for the little guy up in space. But if he can't name 3 songs not off of In Utero, he's a poser and deserves to fucking die in the cold void. Transmission 15 concludes October's posting, which takes us to the next and final act of the story, as of right now. In November, the account returns, but this isn't a message from Icarus. For the last month, we've heard nothing from Catalog, but today we get our first message from them. They tell us that the signal has been jammed because only the government can access these transmissions. They have set up a network within the government to get these transmissions out, though, and Catalog has been forced on the run. The government, being as cartoonishly evil as America always is, has threatened Catalog's life and work. This explains a sudden mask-off post all the way back in September within canon, because, Catalog was threatened and said all of that under duress before going on the run and continuing to post now decoded audio files as a fugitive. Catalog also says that the government fucked with the wrong guy, which, nice threat.
It's really cute that you're gonna defeat me with the power of friendship and all, but again, I am the devil from the Bible, so I don't know how
you
well it's gonna work.
You motherfucker! You didn't let me finish!
Go ahead.
I have all this power in my hands!
Shut up, the fuck up. I'm the I don't care. I do not care. You don't understand. I came down here as a joke to have fun.
The next post takes us back to Icarus. Transmission 16 is about Icarus struggling with survivor's guilt. He doesn't know who he was, and he worries that he might have harmed his missing crew. He does take solace in music, though, a major theme in this story. Transmission 17 again sees Icarus in a concerning place, nauseous and unable to eat, but he does broadcast some music he made. Thank you, Icarus, very cool. Transmission 18 luckily finds Icarus in a better place. He's been working on the control board and even managed to repair a portion of it, getting the cabin lights to work again instead of just the emergency lights. He turns them off to save battery, however. He notes that he feels warmth when a song called We Belong Together by Richie Valens plays, and the song moves him so much that he breaks into tears. He doesn't quite know why, but we can assume that this is just a piece of his former identity. Transmission 19 sees Icarus back to working on the control panel and making no progress, but he does make some music which he shows us. Thank you, Icarus, you sweet spaceman. Very cool.
Take a listen.
Transmission 20 is Thursday,
¡Feliz jueves!
which is a day Icarus hates because on the radio is the Sports Hour, who he hates the host of and their taste. Unfortunately, he also managed to goof up a little on the control board, damaging it and another previously undamaged portion. He notes that he just has to carry on like the guy from the Chemical Marching Band, which raises some real questions about the timeline here. Transmission 21 is about Icarus, hopeful that he's made some engine repair progress. He's had a manual that he can't really read, but it does have diagrams of the wiring that he's been working on, which he's been matching to things that he sees. He's matched this piece of wiring now to what he believes to be the engine controls. He doesn't test his theory, though, because he doesn't know what direction he's going, or what direction he needs to go, and he still hasn't closed the airlock, which would be a teensy tiny little problem on re-entry. He also needs to start on the door controls, but is hesitant because if he messes up, his oxygen supply will be slurped into the void, the way that I wish someone used the grapefruit technique to slurp my soul into the void. Transmission 22 is another music post. Thank you, Icarus. Very cool. Transmission 23 starts with Icarus sad that on these days, there's no radio. He's still struggling with memory loss, and he does get visions while he's sleeping, or rather, nightmares. The nightmares are of fire and fury, a desolate emptiness, like an all-consuming loss. Nuclear nightmares. Other nights he dreams of an endless blue, the ocean. However, he does note that the radio will be back tomorrow, and kinda ends the transmission there. Transmission 24 focuses on the heavy philosophical themes of loneliness. In this episode, homophobic Christians raid the college that broadcasts the radio station Icarus, listens to, giving Icarus more of an experience in what God is. This inspires him to read the Bible, where he notes a contradiction of religion, and realizes that he doesn't care what letter someone is, because he'd much rather have someone than continue being alone, and that he has love for people, even if they're douchebag sports hosts named Bradley. Transmission 25 sees Icarus finally taking care of the airlock. He's rewired the door controls to the point of decent confidence, but he has a suit on and is strapped to the floor just in case. Transmission 26 is another music post with an attached message that reads, "Here goes nothing." Icarus is trying the doors. Transmission 27 sees Icarus celebrating his win. He closed the airlock, got the cabin repressurized, and he didn't die. Unfortunately, though, he explored the rest of the ship, which reveals some deep shit. There are 4 American spacesuits, no people though. The name patches read Jason, Heracles, Theseus, and Orpheus. No Icarus. So we have an unknown crew member, leaving Icarus with 2 possible identities. One with nothing to identify him by, and the other someone who probably wasn't supposed to be on board. The payload dock also contains, get this, a W-49 nuclear warhead, which is pretty hefty, and when he sees this, Icarus has the visions from his nightmares of fire and destruction. Transmission 28 is Icarus having a little bit of a crisis over the revelations in 27, because hey, there's 5 people on board, but only supposed to be 4, so who made the other 4 dudes just... Transmission 29 is still following Icarus's survivor's guilt, as he now fears that he is responsible for their disappearances. But he decides instead of overthinking it, he's just going to play music, so thank you, Icarus, very cool. Transmission 30 sees Icarus struggling as his radio signal is fading away. He's getting further away from Earth. Transmission 31 sees a further loss of hope. Icarus got the navigation equipment working, and then it immediately died alongside most electronics. The battery on the ship is too low to continue running, and as he gets further from home, his radio is losing effectiveness. He gets one last idea to keep his hope alive, though, using the foil blanket to amplify the radio antenna. Transmission 32 starts by immediately ripping up that hope that Transmission 31 gave Icarus. The radio continues to fail and degrade, and Icarus ponders upon God as he loses hope. Transmission 33 is just Icarus singing to himself as the station gets more and more unintelligible. And that's the end of this story at the time of recording. There's a lot of things that really stick out to me about this story, like the fact that the little pixel art we can see of the satellite, as the story progresses, it is slowing down, not spinning as fast, the stars aren't moving so fast in the background. There's also just, of course, the relatable horror of being completely isolated. It's something that everyone fears, but to be isolated like that in space, literally away from home in every aspect that you possibly could be, is a different kind of horror that a lot of people don't really tap into, so it's unique to see a story take this on, especially as we, listen to Icarus's struggles. Now, of course, the unique premise and the deeper ideas of the story are what make it so unique. A notable amount of these posts are just music, though, making me a little worried that it just might be a long-winded ad, in all honesty, for some indie music production. But the concept of a relatively blank slate up in isolation makes for a good opportunity to inspect the human condition, and say what you will about some things when it comes to this story, which, trust me, I'm going to. The story really takes advantage of the deeper philosophical connotations of this, the way I wish people I'm romantically interested in would take advantage of me. A considerable amount of the story is actually just reflecting on Icarus as a person. Now, of course, there's a few actual mysteries here, many of which caused by glaring plot holes. But the first being, is Icarus actually Icarus? We know there's two possible identities our crewmate could have, Orpheus or Icarus, and we know nothing about Orpheus other than that they were there. We do know that Icarus had recording equipment that seemed to be handmade and was Russian, and now our boy's tendency to be drawn to the recording device does make it seem like maybe he knew it in life before. Also with this, the nuke on board was an American-manufactured nuke. It makes sense for the USSR to steal it, I guess, because this is, according to catalog, a Russian ship. But why is this thing in space flying away from Earth, and why was a Russian ship stocked with American crewmates? I have no idea, maybe Cold War antics, but our guy, in fact, being Icarus would also make sense for the music at first sounding foreign to him. There's also another little tinfoil condom theory I have, which is that Icarus and Orpheus are the same person. So if we go back to the books, because I told you those would be important, that we found in the bags, one of them was Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Now, if there are 4 people on the ship, then it would make sense for these 4 people to have those 4 roles. It's just a storytelling mechanic, right? So someone on board was the tinkerer, someone was the soldier, someone was the sailor, and someone was the spy. It would make sense for Icarus to be the spy, meaning that it could make sense for Icarus to be the spy, having 2 identities, hence explaining the bag and the spacesuit. Because do note, whereas Jason, Heracles, and Theseus all have bags and suits, Icarus doesn't have a suit and Orpheus doesn't have a bag. Something doesn't make sense. Something nefarious is brewing. Now, the timeline makes 0 sense. We know that the nuke in the bay was made in the 50s and decommissioned in the 70s. We know that the ship is supposedly from the 70s, but Icarus is listening to Nirvana, specifically All Apologies, which came out in 1993. There's also Icarus referencing My Chemical Romance, which I'm pretty sure is in the 2000s. So that really fucks with the timeline. Let's just ignore the My Chemical Romance thing and stick with Nirvana, 1993. That means that there is at least 20 years between Icarus waking up in the shuttle and the last time we could get a W-49 nuclear warhead. This means that Icarus was somehow sustained for 20 years or something different happened. Let's say that this bomb was stolen and stored, though. Even at the latest estimate, Icarus went up at 91 as the USSR was collapsing and was zoinked for 2 years. Something here is not making sense, because the Soviet Union being the Soviet Union and Soviet space insignia being all over this stuff means that Icarus had to go up while the Soviet Union was intact. Plot holes aside, what exactly is Icarus's fate? Here's my unfortunate theory, and why, just from the context clues we have. I don't think Icarus makes it. As we see at the end of the transmissions we've received so far, the ship is getting so far away that the radio is barely picking it up. The SOS that Catalog receives at the start of this barely makes it back to Earth. I think the transmissions we are getting right now are in the past, and the SOS is current. The way this story is headed in logic in mind, Icarus at best turns the ship around before starting that SOS, and starting a war of attrition. And at worst stays in the direction he's in, floating forever away, destined to die alone. The fact that within the canon Catalog is on the run from the authorities and leaking this also has something to play with the unfortunateness of this story here, because I don't think anyone's going to get a happy ending. Maybe that's just my depression speaking. I think that the odds of our lad being okay are unfortunately really slim. I mean, you have to consider space, just the vastness of space and how impossible it is to survive there. Maybe something else happens, but going off of what we have, I think this is the most likely course. Now, of course, I could get into some wacko mode territory and be like, oh, Icarus is going to fucking manufacture jet fuel out of all of the toothpaste, and he's going to go clean the solar panels and all of that. Now, of course, I just don't think it's looking good. There is still, of course, a question of why would a Soviet ship be staffed by Yankees in the Cold War, the possibility that Icarus is a sleeper agent, and how much of this was a spy thriller just before Icarus was blasted off into space and his 4 crewmates were mysteriously missing. There is something to be said about the uniqueness of this story, though, and the taste that the creator has within just small details like that. The time that this story spends philosophically pondering a lot of things is noteworthy to me. I could see how a lot of people would find it annoying or slow, and it drags down the plot, but I do appreciate it. So, of course, if you want to check this out for yourself, the Instagram is going to be down in the description below. If I had a nickel for every time I had found an ARG on Instagram, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it is weird that it's happened twice.
Okay, we did it. We made it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of this. Really does mean the world to me. If you're new here, go ahead and just press the subscribe button. It's completely free. Helps me reach my dreams. You can always undo it if you hate my guts later. Thanks, as always, to the patrons on screen. Huge shout out to Jonathan Magbu for becoming my 7th patron. Welcome to the community. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to join the Patreon, the link is always down in the description below. No pressure to. I don't like locking content behind paid doors, if you understand what I'm saying. This was a pretty fun video to make. I set a deadline for myself, and then life immediately pulled out the sledgehammer and was like, give me your balls, son. So this is a little late. Sorry for that. There's also been like some comments that are like, it doesn't seem like you're enjoying yourself. I am. I promise. I'm not like inebriated or super sleep deprived in most of these, so I'm not like super duper high energy like I am in some videos where I am one of those 2 things. But I do enjoy myself a lot with these videos. It does mean the world to me. I'm just kind of depressed right now. Sounds a little fucked up, but I'm not. Shardy is not in a good place. But that's good, because I just gotta keep making the videos, you know? Gotta wait it out. Again, thank you so much for watching. It really does mean the world to me. This means so much to me. So much more than I could ever really put to words, that I can do this and get paid for it, and hopefully do it for a full-time living soon. So, just thank you. Have a great time. I'll see you later, and until next time, memento mori.